2:15 in the morning. The world should have been deep in sleep, but at Caldwell Manor, hell had just opened its doors. The siren of the fire truck tore through the quiet night of the upscale Beverly Hills neighborhood. That piercing, relentless sound, screaming like a metallic monster gone mad. Blue and red rotating lights from the police cars swept across the white marble walls. They created patchy streaks of color, dancing on the house facade like fresh blood splatter. I stood barefoot on the dew-soaked lawn. The bone-chilling cold of November seeped into my flesh through my thin t-shirt. But strangely, I didn't feel cold at all. My tactile nerves seemed to have been completely paralyzed. I was left with only my sense of smell, and the only thing I could smell right now was the scent of destruction. The smell of burnt oak, pungent and stinging. The smell of melting plastic, harsh and toxic, clinging to my nasal lining. And above all, the smell of lies, thicker than the smoke itself. In front of me, the large kitchen window, once Arthur's proud boast, was now just a gaping black hole, jagged like the wide mouth of death. Firefighters in thick protective gear were spraying the last jets of water onto the smoldering ruins. The sizzling sound of water hitting hot coals sounded like the painful groans of a dying house. Columns of opaque white smoke rose, billowing into the pitch-black night sky. "What the hell did you do, Sam?" A rough hand grabbed my collar, jerking me forward, making me stumble. Arthur Caldwell, my father-in-law, the man who always prided himself on his noble lineage. He was wearing expensive silk pajamas, but his face was twisted, distorted by a dramatic rage. He screamed, spittle flying onto my face, mixing with the soot. "How many times have I told you? Huh, you bastard? I told you to check the gas stove before going to sleep." "Are you deaf, or do you intentionally want to kill this whole family?" His voice cracked, echoing down the street, attracting the gaze of the curious crowd gathering outside the fence. I didn't answer immediately. I calmly looked deep into his eyes. His pupils were dilated. His breathing was rapid, gasping. But with the eyes of someone used to analyzing behavioral data, I didn't see real panic in those depths. There was no extreme fear of someone who had just barely escaped death by fire. It was just the look of a mediocre actor trying too hard to stay in character. He was performing for the audience. The audience was the wealthy neighbors whispering and pointing. The audience was the police officers holding notepads. And I, Sam Wilson, was the villain he had cast for this play. "Is it that useless son-in-law again?" A whisper came from the crowd. "Heard he's been unemployed for a year, living off his wife's family. Now he burns their house down. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you." Each word felt like a needle pricking my ears. But I remained silent. Silence was my only shield right now. I turned my head to the left, looking for a familiar figure. Lisa. My wife. The woman I vowed to protect for life at our wedding 3 years ago. She was standing next to her mother, Eleanor, a few steps away. Lisa was sobbing, her whole body shaking like a leaf in a storm. Eleanor held her daughter tight, stroking her hair in comfort, but her eyes looked at me, sharp and cold as a freshly sharpened razor. Lisa. I called her name, my voice hoarse from smoke and disappointment.
You know I didn't go into the kitchen tonight. I was in my office from 8 p.m. running code. You were the one who brought water up to me. Lisa looked up. In that brief moment, our eyes met. I expected a defense, a denial, or at least a bit of doubt in her eyes. But no, she avoided my gaze immediately, as if my look was burning fire.
She buried her face in her mother's shoulder, sobbing louder, the cry sounding resentful and full of accusation. "Sam, why were you so careless?" she said through tears, her voice choked, but every word clear. "I reminded you to turn off the soup warmer before going upstairs. Why did you forget?" My heart skipped a beat. It felt like the floor beneath my feet just collapsed, pushing me into a bottomless abyss. "Soup warmer? I never touched that stove. I didn't even eat dinner at home tonight because of a deadline." In that moment, everything suddenly became painfully clear. The fragmented pieces, the small anomalies of the past few days, automatically rearranged themselves in my brain's processor. The way Arthur constantly complained about gambling debts in whispered phone calls. The way Lisa asked repeatedly if I had taken sleeping pills for my insomnia. And the way they looked at each other meaningfully at dinner yesterday when I walked into the room. This was not an accident. This was not carelessness. This was an execution planned in meticulous detail. And I was the scapegoat, the sacrifice for them to exchange for a fat insurance payout to save this rotting fortune. The police chief stepped forward, notebook in hand, his flashlight shining straight into my face, making me squint. "Are you Sam Wilson? Mr. Caldwell here stated that you were the last person to use the kitchen and showed signs of intoxication." Arthur quickly interjected, his voice trembling with the pain of a helpless father. "That's right, officer. He's very forgetful. He has mental issues and takes sedatives since becoming unemployed. I tried to help him, but I didn't expect him to cause this." I looked at the police officer, then at Arthur. I didn't scream my innocence. I didn't struggle or resist like a madman. I just stood still, raising my hand to adjust the collar Arthur had crumpled. My strangely calm action made Arthur pause for a second. He expected me to go crazy. He expected me to lose control, to further solidify the label of dangerous madman he just pinned on me. But I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. "I understand," I said softly, my voice cold, blending into the night wind, devoid of emotion. "Just write down in the report what he said. But remember one thing, officer.
I looked straight into the camera lens mounted on the officer's chest. Ashes don't lie. Only humans know how to lie. I turned my back on the smoking ruins. Behind me, the play continued with Lisa's crying and Arthur's accusations. But in my head, a countdown clock had started ticking. A defense system had just been activated, and they had no idea who they had just declared war on. I sat in the back of the police car, not arrested, not yet. They said this was just a procedure to isolate for preliminary statement and protect my safety. The cold car window pressed against my forehead, transmitting the chill straight to my brain. I looked out the window through the smoked glass. Caldwell Manor loomed, immersed in darkness and the chaos of emergency lights. This house used to be my dream, a magnificent Gothic architecture, imposing, with spires reaching for the night sky like spearheads. It was a symbol of long-standing prosperity, the class that a poor boy like me once craved to touch. But now, sitting in the iron cage of a police car, looking at it with the eyes of a systems engineer, I only saw cracks. Cracks not on the brick walls, but deep within the very foundation of this family. 3 years ago, when I married Lisa, I thought I was the luckiest man in the world.
A freelance software engineer from the slums, catching the eye of a lady from a noble lineage. I loved her with all my innocence and sincerity. But the honeymoon ended faster than I thought. It ended right at the first breakfast after the wedding. "Why don't you get a decent job, Sam?" Arthur asked me while cutting a piece of Wagyu steak with heirloom silver cutlery.
Decent job, according to his definition, was wearing an Italian suit, a silk tie, and sitting in a glass and steel skyscraper office in the financial center of Wall Street. He didn't understand, and he didn't bother trying to understand concepts like freelancer, full-stack developer, or IoT security consultant. To him, me sitting at home typing on a computer all day, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, meant unemployed. And worse than unemployed, a parasite. I closed my eyes, letting those humiliating memories flood back. I remembered the lavish family parties where I was introduced as Lisa's husband instead of my real name. The pitying looks mixed with contempt from their friends when they knew I worked from home. "Oh, you fix computers? My printer is broken. Can you come check it sometime?" They laughed. Arthur laughed along. Lisa remained silent, pretending to be busy with the wine glass in her hand. I endured it all in silence, because I loved Lisa. Or at least I once loved the illusion of her that I drew in my mind. I used my savings to silently pay the bills Arthur ignored. I upgraded the cybersecurity system for his company for free when they were hacked. But my kindness was only met with increasing contempt. Recently, the cracks started to split open, impossible to cover up anymore. Arthur invested wrongly in a virtual real estate project in the metaverse and lost everything. He owed the bank,
He owed loan sharks who never joked. I heard his secret phone calls in the study at midnight when everyone was asleep. His voice trembling, begging, "I need more time. Money will come soon, I swear."
And then a question that made me shudder when I recalled it. What is the maximum fire insurance limit for this house? Back then, I just thought he was desperate in his thoughts. I didn't expect that desperation to include turning me into an arsonist or even a murderer if I unfortunately burned to death in that fire. "Mr. Wilson?" The voice of the officer in the front seat pulled me back to reality.
Do you want to add anything about your schedule tonight before we head to the station? I turned to look at him, my eyes unusually sharp. I already said it. I was in my office from 8 p.m. until I heard the siren. I was coding for an urgent project for a European client. Their server can confirm my login and work time in real time. The officer sighed, shaking his head with a look of disbelief. "We have a witness, Mr. Wilson. Mrs.
Save this family. I looked at Lisa, the woman I vowed to protect for life. Now she was using my love as a weapon to corner me. If I admitted to negligence, insurance would pay $2 million. Arthur would escape debt, the family would be peaceful, and me, I would carry the label of house burner for life, a stain on my record, making it impossible for me to ever get a decent job or even a bank loan."
She was more loyal to Arthur than the most loyal watchdog. Surely Arthur promised to pay off her addict son's gambling debts in exchange for this perjured testimony. A terrifyingly perfect script. Motive, unclear, maybe due to depression, carelessness, or resentment. Witness, yes, a reputable person in the family. Scene, burnt down, erasing all physical traces. And the perpetrator, an unemployed, parasitic son-in-law with a history of insomnia and sedative use. They thought they had won. They thought I was just a lousy computer repairman, weak and incapable of fighting back. They thought I would panic and confess to get leniency. But they forgot a fundamental thing. In this modern tech world, every action, no matter how small, leaves a digital footprint. And I am the one who reads those footprints. I remembered the incident a week ago. Arthur suddenly acted surprisingly kind. "Sam, the electrical system in the kitchen is flickering. You're an engineer. Check it for me." At that time, I found it strange. Arthur never asked me to do anything. He always hired expensive service companies. But I still did it. I took apart the old wiring system in the kitchen to check. And right at that moment, professional instinct saved my life. I was developing a new sensor prototype for a smart home project for a big tech corporation. I needed a real environment to test its durability and heat resistance, and Arthur's kitchen was the perfect place. I secretly installed it. It wasn't a huge security camera that everyone could see. It was a multi-point sensor system. It recorded temperature accurately to the degree Celsius. It measured humidity. It measured gas concentrations like CO2, gas, toxic smoke.
And most importantly, it integrated a micro-thermal camera only the size of a pinhead. I hid it extremely carefully inside the wall socket, behind the plastic cover, where no one would suspect.
This device operated independently on a super durable lithium backup battery and automatically connected to a separate 5G network to upload data to the cloud every 5 minutes. I didn't tell anyone, not even Lisa, because I wanted to keep this $1 million project a secret and also wanted to surprise her with a smart home on our upcoming wedding anniversary. Ironically, now it wasn't an anniversary gift. It was the only alibi.
And I am the one who reads those footprints. I remembered the incident a week ago. Arthur suddenly acted surprisingly kind. "Sam, the electrical system in the kitchen is flickering. You're an engineer. Check it for me." At that time, I found it strange. Arthur never asked me to do anything. He always hired expensive service companies. But I still did it. I took apart the old wiring system in the kitchen to check. My heart pounded in my chest. The data was still there. The fire had burned the kitchen, burned the socket, and that hardware device. But it couldn't burn the data packets sent to the satellite before the device was destroyed by high heat. I quickly scrolled through the log files. The temperature chart drew a vertical curve at 1:45 a.m. The hydrocarbon gas concentration chart skyrocketed 5 minutes before that. Then there was a short, large-sized video file marked Motion Detected at 1:30 a.m. I didn't open it right away. I didn't want the officer to see it right now. If I showed the evidence now, they might try to cover it up or destroy it if Arthur had connections. I needed Arthur and Lisa to sink deeper. I needed them to sign the insurance claim form. I needed them to fully play their roles as miserable victims before the law and the public.
Then, when they thought they had touched victory, I would deliver the fatal blow. "Mr. Wilson?" The officer called again, his voice crankier. "Are you listening to me? We will release you to a relative's house temporarily, but you are forbidden to leave the city. And tomorrow morning we need you at the station to give a formal statement with a lawyer if you want." I turned off the phone screen, looking up straight into the rearview mirror.
My eyes no longer looked like someone who just escaped death. It was the look of a hunter seeing the prey fall into the trap. "I understand," I said, my voice strangely calm, surprising even the officer. "I will be there on time, and I promise I will bring you a story much more interesting than Mrs. Martha's absurd tale." I stepped out of the police car. Cold wind rushed in, blowing into my face.
I stood looking back at the house one last time before leaving. Arthur was standing, talking to the fire investigator, hands waving wildly, his face feigning fake agony, trying to squeeze out a few tears. He didn't know that. In the digital cloud hovering over his head, the verdict for him had been written, clear in every frame, every pixel. "Enjoy the rest of tonight, Arthur. Sleep well, if you can.
Because tomorrow, when the sun rises, you will wish you had burned to death in that fire, rather than face the truth I am about to expose. 8 a.m. the next morning. Sunlight shone down on Caldwell Manor, but couldn't dispel the gloom. The smell of last night's fire still lingered in the air.
This place was still intact, separated from the blackened kitchen by just a wall. In front of me was a cup of cold black coffee. Opposite me were Arthur, Eleanor, and Lisa. They sat close together, forming a solid alliance block. At the other end of the table was Mr. Henderson, the representative from the insurance company. He was a middle-aged man with tiny eyes behind thick glasses, constantly tapping his pen on the file. "Mr. Caldwell,"
Henderson said, his voice flat like a machine. Based on the preliminary police report and the fire scene, we lean towards the hypothesis that this was user negligence. However, he paused, glancing at me with implication. If no one steps up to take specific responsibility for this negligent act, we will be forced to open a deeper investigation into the possibility of intentional arson.
And that will take 3 to 6 months to disperse funds. Arthur shuddered. I saw his finger twitching on the mahogany table surface. He didn't have 3 months. He needed money right now to pay interest on the hot loan due next week. Oh, no need to be so complicated. Arthur hurriedly waved his hand, a twisted smile appearing on his haggard face after a sleepless night. Our family is always transparent. Actually, he turned to me, his gaze shifting from worry to imposing. My son-in-law, Sam, confessed to me this morning. He admitted he forgot to turn off the gas stove after warming up late-night food. Right, Sam? The whole room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Lisa gripped her mother's hand tightly, red-painted nails digging into flesh. She looked at me, eyes swollen from crying, or from acting too immersed. That look begged, "Please, Sam."
"Save this family." I looked at Lisa, the woman I vowed to protect for life. Now she was using my love as a weapon to corner me. If I admitted to negligence, insurance would pay $2 million. Arthur would escape debt. The family would be peaceful. And me? I would carry the label of house burner for life. A stain on my record, making it impossible for me to ever get a decent job or even a bank loan. Save this family. I looked at Lisa, the woman I vowed to protect for life. Now she was using my love as a weapon to corner me. If I admitted to negligence, insurance would pay $2 million. Arthur would escape debt. The family would be peaceful. And me? I would carry the label of house burner for life, a stain on my record, making it impossible for me to ever get a decent job or even a bank loan.
To kill a virus, you can't block it right at the firewall. You have to let it penetrate deep into the system. Let it reveal the source code. Then you isolate and destroy it. Sam? Arthur growled, his patience running out. Mr. Henderson is waiting for your answer. I put the coffee cup down. A small clink sounded amidst the silence. Dad is right, I said slowly. Arthur sighed in relief, his shoulders slumping.
Henderson nodded, pulling out a confirmation form. Very good. Then please sign here, confirming you are the person who caused the fire due to carelessness. I looked at the paper. The dense black lines danced before my eyes. I need to think, I said. What? Arthur glared. Sign it now. What is there to think about? This is a legal matter, Arthur. I turned to look at him, my eyes calm but firm. I need to read the terms carefully.
I don't want to make a mistake. Give me until tonight. Henderson looked at his watch. Fine. I can wait until 5 p.m., but I advise you to cooperate. Delay only makes things worse. He stood up, packed his briefcase, and went out to smoke. The room was left with only the family. Immediately, Arthur stripped off the kind mask. He slammed the table and stood up.
What tricks are you planning, Sam? You want to blackmail me? I fed you for 3 years. Now is the time you repay me. I didn't answer him. I stood up, walking towards the stairs. I'm tired. I need to rest. Lisa ran after me, pulling my hand at the foot of the stairs. Sam, don't make Dad angry. Dad promised not to press criminal charges against you. Dad will share a part of the insurance money with us. We can start over.
I looked down at the hand holding mine. The diamond wedding ring on her finger sparkled under the chandelier. The ring I had to code day and night for 6 months to buy. Start over? I asked, my voice light. You think we can start over on the ashes of this lie? Lisa lowered her face, avoiding my gaze. I just want what's best for everyone. Best for everyone except me. I brushed her hand away. I walked upstairs, to my room.
I locked the door. My room was in the west wing, luckily unaffected by the fire. This place was my sanctuary. With dozens of computer screens, tangled cables, and electronic circuit boards lying around. They called this my tech trash heap, but this was my weapon. I sat down in the chair, waking the system up. 3 screens lit up simultaneously. I accessed the hidden server. Data from the sensor last night had been processed. The temperature chart drew a perfect curve of a gasoline fire. The thermal camera had recorded every gesture, every word of theirs. I saw Arthur pouring gasoline on the curtains. I saw Lisa standing guard at the kitchen door, hand trembling, holding the lighter. I heard Arthur rehearsing the script. Must cry loud, blame Sam as soon as the firefighters arrive. I copied all the data to a secure USB.
At the same time, I set up an automatic send command, dead man switch. If I didn't enter the cancellation code before 6 p.m. tonight, this entire video would be sent straight to the police chief and insurance company emails. I looked at the clock. 10 a.m.
7 hours left until judgment time. I leaned back in the chair, looking up at the ceiling. They wanted me to play the sinner. Fine, I would play that role brilliantly. Until the velvet curtain fell, and the real play began. 5 p.m. The sun began to set behind the hills of Beverly Hills. The crimson sunset soaked the sky like a bloody omen. Caldwell Manor's living room was immersed in twilight darkness. No one bothered to turn on the lights. The tension was thick in the air, heavy enough to slice into blocks. Mr. Henderson, the insurance agent, had returned on time. He sat at the head of the table, spreading the claim request file on the cold glass table. The sound of turning pages rustled piercingly in the deadly silence. Arthur sat on the right, hand constantly twisting the gold ring on his ring finger until the skin turned red. Lisa sat on the left, eyes red, hand clutching a shredded tissue. Eleanor stood behind her husband, arms crossed like a ghost guarding a collapsing clan. Mr. Wilson. Henderson spoke up, breaking the silence. His voice was even, emotionless, but carried an ultimatum. Have you thought it through? We don't have much time before my legal department closes the file today. If you don't sign, the criminal investigation process will be activated tomorrow morning. Arthur leaned forward, voice mixed with threat and pleading. Sign it, Sam. Don't make it hard for everyone anymore. You know this is the best solution for all of us. Dad promises to take care of you. I looked at the white paper in front of me. The words, I, Sam Wilson, admit to negligence, danced before my eyes like maggots. It waited for my signature to legalize this vile lie. I reached into my jacket pocket. Arthur held his breath, eyes glued to my hand. Lisa looked up, eyes flashing with faint hope. They thought I was getting a pen.
They thought the prey had accepted its fate, but I pulled out a sleek, pitch-black tablet. I placed it on the table. The black glass reflected Arthur's gaunt, sweaty face. I won't sign, I said, voice calm but resonant, clear every single word. What? Arthur roared, standing up abruptly, knocking the chair over backward.
Do you want to die? You want to rot in jail for arson? You think who will believe a jobless guy like you? Calm down, Mr. Caldwell. I raised my hand, signaling him to sit down. My gesture exuded a strange authority that made him pause. Before you call the police to throw me in jail, I think we should watch a short movie. What movie? Lisa asked, voice trembling, intuition telling her something bad. I didn't answer.
I swiped the tablet screen lightly. Connect to living room smart TV, I commanded by voice. The 85-inch TV screen on the fireplace wall lit up. A command line interface appeared, with green codes running down the screen like a matrix. What the hell is this? Arthur frowned, taking a step back. Are you hacking my TV? No, Arthur. I smiled coldly. a smile that didn't reach the eyes. I am accessing the black box of this house.
Black box? Henderson frowned, pushing up his glasses, starting to feel professional interest. You say this house has a surveillance system? Not just surveillance, I explained, eyes still glued to the screen displaying downloading data. This is a multi-point IoT sensor system I secretly installed last week to check electrical safety. It records everything: temperature, humidity, sound, and thermal images.
And this is what it recorded last night. I pressed play. On the TV screen appeared sharp black and white images from the thermal imaging camera. The angle from the low power socket scanned the entire kitchen space. The time clock in the corner of the screen read 01:28:15 a.m. The kitchen was empty and dark. But then the kitchen door opened. 2 figures walked in. Even though it was a thermal image showing body temperature, the posture and gestures were unmistakable. A large man with a limp and a young woman with long hair. Arthur and Lisa. No. Lisa gasped, hand covering her mouth to stop a scream of horror. On the screen, Arthur was holding a large plastic can. The temperature data next to the video started jumping numbers continuously. Arthur poured the liquid in the can onto the window curtains. The curtain area on the thermal screen turned cooler due to liquid evaporation. He poured it on the Oak Island table too. That is gasoline, I narrated coldly like a news anchor. My gas sensor recorded hydrocarbon concentration skyrocketing to 400 ppm right at this moment, enough to cause an explosion if there is a spark. Arthur, in the video, turned to say something to Lisa.
I turned on the sound. The voice was slightly static due to noise filtering, but rang out clearly from the high-end TV speakers.
Dad, I'm scared. What if the fire spreads to the bedroom? He is right upstairs.
Don't worry, Dad calculated it all. Just burn the kitchen. Arthur's voice was grumpy.
Enough to get $2 million to pay the debt and kick that parasite out to the street. Do you want to live on the street or be a mistress? In the current living room, the air seemed to be sucked out. Everyone forgot to breathe. Arthur's face drained of blood. He stared at the screen as if hypnotized by his own crime. Lisa burst into tears, burying her head on the cold glass table.
Eleanor collapsed on the sofa, clutching her chest, gasping. Henderson stood up abruptly. He looked at the screen, then at Arthur with disgusted eyes. He pulled out his phone, fingers dialing emergency numbers. "Stop!" Arthur screamed, rushing forward like a wounded animal. He snatched Henderson's phone and threw it on the floor. "This is fake. It is deep fake. Sam is a computer expert. He created this to harm me."
He turned to me, eyes bloodshot, foaming at the mouth. "You are a bastard. You used AI to create this, right? I will sue you for slander." I slowly stood up. I was a head taller than him. I looked down at him with extreme contempt, like looking at a cockroach dying. "Deepfake? You think I can create a perfect deepfake video with complex thermal data in just a few hours? And more importantly," I pointed to the screen, to the running code line in the right corner. This is the hash key of the encrypted data. It is synchronized in real time with GPS satellites and Amazon AWS storage servers. Every second of data has a blockchain digital signature that cannot be forged or edited. You can explain the term deepfake to the jury or to the FBI's digital forensic experts. They will be very interested in this work of art. And the charge of attempted murder, too, since you knew clearly I was sleeping upstairs. Henderson picked up his phone. He backed away towards the door, keeping a safe distance. His voice was steel, professional. Mr. Caldwell, I just sent an urgent request to the local police, and I also declare the cancellation of your entire insurance contract due to fraudulent profiteering behavior.
Our company will sue you to recover investigation costs. You better prepare a lawyer. Lisa rushed to my feet. She hugged my pant leg tightly, tears soaking the fabric.
Sam, I beg you, turn it off. Delete it. I was wrong. I was forced by Dad. I didn't want to do that. I am still your wife, Sam. We can start over.
I looked down at the woman kneeling at my feet. Once the person I loved the most. Now just a cowardly accomplice.
You are not my wife, Lisa, I said, voice icy. I pried her hands off one finger at a time, decisively and ruthlessly. You are an accomplice. You held that lighter, and you just burned your last chance. Arthur, in extreme desperation, grabbed a heavy wine bottle on the table. He roared a savage cry. "I will kill you!" He rushed at me, intending to bring the wine bottle down on my head to silence the witness.
But the siren wailed right at the mansion gate. The police had arrived. Faster than I thought. Maybe Henderson texted the alarm since I started showing the video. Crash! The main door was busted open. The SWAT team rushed in with guns and shields. Red laser lights swept patchily over Arthur. "Freeze! Drop the weapon! Police!" Arthur froze. The wine bottle slipped from his hand. Smash! It shattered on the marble floor.
Red wine flowed out like fresh blood, just like his life and honor right now. I calmly picked up the tablet. I turned off the screen. Darkness returned to the TV screen, but the truth had been exposed to the blinding light. 2 police officers rushed forward, twisting Arthur's arms behind his back. The sound of handcuffs snapping onto his wrists sounded dry. "Arthur Caldwell, you are under arrest for arson and insurance fraud."
Lisa screamed miserably as she was dragged away by a policewoman. "Sam, save me! Don't let them take me!" I stood still, watching them being taken away. I didn't feel gloating. I only felt empty. A strange, peaceful emptiness. I walked over the broken glass pieces, walked over the red wine puddle, walked over the shattered past. I walked towards the main door, where the night wind was blowing in strongly. The play had ended. And I was the only audience left to turn off the lights. The police siren faded at the end of the street, taking the noise and lies far away. Caldwell Manor was now silent as a tomb. The main door was wide open, cold wind rushing in, carrying dry leaves rolling on the floor full of broken glass.
I stood alone in the middle of the large living room. The place that used to be a symbol of power and glamour now was just a hollow shell. Mr.
Henderson, the insurance agent, was packing his briefcase with a serious face. He stopped in front of me, adjusting his glasses. "Mr. Wilson," he said, voice less cold and businesslike, "you saved our company a large sum of money, and more importantly, you saved yourself." "Thank you, Henderson," I replied, shaking his hand. "I just did what needed to be done." "If you need a job?" Henderson hesitated, pulling out a business card.
Our fraud investigation department always welcomes people with special skills like you. I took the card, smiling slightly. "I will think about it." Anderson nodded, then walked out, leaving me alone with the silence. I looked around the house one last time, looked at the expensive oil paintings hanging on the wall, things Arthur always bragged were heirlooms, but were actually copies, bought at exorbitant prices.
Looked at the red velvet sofa where Lisa used to sit, promising a happy future she never intended to fulfill. It was all just a facade. I walked upstairs to my office. I didn't need to pack much. Clothes, not necessary. I only took the hard drive containing the entire source code of the smart home project and the old laptop that had fought with me through many long nights. I turned on my phone.
A notification message from the bank just appeared on the screen. "Your account has just received $5 million. That was the first payment for the sensor technology patent I just sold to Anvil Tech Corporation this morning." Arthur was right about one thing. Last night's fire was worth millions of dollars. But the person receiving it wasn't him. It was me. I carried the small suitcase down the stairs. My footsteps echoed, lonely but steady. At the door, I met Mrs. Martha. The old housekeeper was standing huddled in the corner of the porch, trembling with fear. She had hidden in her room when the police stormed in. Seeing me, she bowed her head low, daring not to look straight. "Master Sam," I pulled out a stack of cash from my wallet, the money I intended to use to buy an anniversary gift for Lisa. I shoved it into her hand. "Take it." Mrs. Martha was bewildered. "Why, I harmed you?" "This money is not for you," I said. "For your grandson. Tell him never to live a lie like the people in this house. And find another job. The Caldwell house is finished." I walked past her, going out the main gate. The taxi I called was waiting. The driver stepped down, opening the trunk to help me put the luggage away. "Where do you want to go, sir?" the driver asked. I stood still for a second, breathing in the fresh night air. The smell of the fire had vanished, giving way to the scent of late-blooming jasmine and damp earth. I looked up at the starry night sky. The stars twinkled like electronic eyes watching the city. I was no longer Sam, the useless son-in-law. I was no longer the despised parasite. I was Sam Wilson, the architect of truth. "To the airport," I told the driver, smiling with relief. "I have a date with the future in Silicon Valley.
The car rolled away, leaving Caldwell Manor sinking into the darkness behind. I didn't look back, because I knew, from the ashes of this betrayal, a steel phoenix had just been reborn.